You wanted to see me? Yes, come in. It is time for your annual review.
Already?
Yes, already.
Shit.
Right, let's begin. Do you know how many projects you finished this year?
No.
16. Do you know how many projects you released this year?
At least 13.
No, it was 11.
Oh.
Out of the 8 targets you set at the beginning of the year, do you know how many you hit?
Yes, actually, I hit 2.
How many?
I hit 2.
Yeah. Do you think that's acceptable?
I mean, I had other stuff going on. Like, I did a bunch of cool new things and pushed myself in new ways that these numbers don't reflect.
That is irrelevant. Your job is those numbers, okay? You chose that for yourself. You know you need to make more, finish more, release more, and yet you don't. We've had regular meetings throughout the year. You set your own goals in front of me. I don't influence them, and yet you still fail to hit them, whether it's a daily to-do list or a weekly goal or a yearly goal. You're not going where you think you're going, and I don't think you ever will. Do you think your heroes were like this? No, I didn't think so. You wanted to see me? Yes, Danny boy. Come in, take a seat. I need to see you because we have to fill out that dumb year review thing. But don't worry, fear not. I'll try and make it as fun as possible. Alright. You're in safe hands. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so before we get down to business, I actually have some serious news to give you, and that is that I just farted.
Right. Very nice.
No, I'm joking. That's not the news. The news is we actually have a party straight after this meeting to celebrate your amazing numbers.
Oh, wow. Thank you. And now, onto the numbers.
Did you know you finished 16 amazing creations this year? I mean, that is just incredible. When I first saw that, I thought it was a lie, right? You've done it with such a high level of quality and love, and even though your year was so busy, you still managed to continue doing what you love and even up your game in many ways. So I'm just so proud of you. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I do try hard, I guess.
Oh, I know. And your efforts do not go unnoticed. I'll tell you that much for free. I mean, you're my only employee, so...
Yeah.
By the way, it says here you only hit 2 out of your 8 goals.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's hard delaying targets and goals and rethinking your priorities when things come up, but you managed to do it and still managed to keep a good mindset and not let it affect everything else. It's really inspiring to see.
Thanks.
You, my friend, are incredible, and I think you clearly understand what it means to live and to work, and you should be extremely proud.
That was a small reenactment of what was going through my head at the end of 2024. One part of me was telling myself off for only hitting 2 out of the 8 goals I set for the year, and another part of me was congratulating me on all the things that I did achieve that year. One of those bosses is a big fan of discipline, and the other boss is a big fan of play. Over the last few years, I have thought a lot about how play and discipline relate to each other and how I relate to them. I like to think of them as existing on a spectrum, play on one side and discipline on the other, and then everything in between. In this video, I'm going to use this spectrum to help explain some of my points. But what is the point of this video? This video is being made to try and answer this question. When should I be hard on myself and when should I not? Let's try and answer it. So, what ambition am I talking about when I ask the question, when should I be hard on myself versus when I should not? The ambition I'm talking about is the following. I want to be someone who is able to spend all of his time making and releasing cool, meaningful art. That is the ambition we're talking about in this video. Why is that such an ambition of mine? Because making art is one of the best things in the world. I'm quite a creative guy and I kind of need to create to live. And that kind of took a while to fully know and accept for me. But yeah, it is actually backed by research, which was very validating to find out. So the best way to achieve this ambition of mine, I think, is probably to finish and release art, because that can lead to art paying me and me making more with bigger resources, and also is just me doing the ambition as much as I can right now anyway. So yeah, that is like the best thing, I think. And it's also cool for me to know that others can experience and understand my art, or me, or them, and just life better through my art. So yeah, I have to release it for that to happen. So how close am I today to that ambition? Well, I'm starting art projects quite often, which is good. I'm not releasing them at a matching rate though, and that's because I'm not finishing them at a matching rate. And that would be fine if the rates weren't a big difference, but I would honestly estimate that like 1% of what I start gets released. Maybe even less. Maybe just, I don't know. It's really rough, that estimation. This is because as my projects develop, they go from the play side of the spectrum down to the discipline side. We don't like that side. And when something moves from the play side to the discipline side, it obviously gets boring and exciting, and you have to work hard. And then I ask myself, what the hell am I doing here? I could be playing right now. And so I do. I go back to the play side, and for me, normally that means starting a new song. And so I'm there in the play side, making a new song. It's amazing, literally where I want to be, amazing, fun. And slowly it creeps down the scale. So then I go back to the play side, because what the hell am I doing down there? I could be playing right now. And basically that whole thing for years. And I know that's a bit ridiculous, like just grow up and finish something. Yeah, hold that thought for 2 seconds. It's just worth noting that my genuine way of being is the play side of the spectrum. And that is completely valid and is very good in its own way and in many situations. By the way, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can be extremely freeing to not have to play and go down to the discipline side and just turn my brain off and follow rules. All I'm saying is my natural place on this spectrum is definitely the play side. And that is both my biggest strength and weakness. Now, back to the grow up and finish something point. Yeah, I kind of agree. Discipline in regard to this ambition of mine can definitely be helpful. Since leaving school in 2020, when we went into lockdown, I found that the hardest part about trying to be a regular publisher of what I would consider good art isn't the getting ideas or starting projects, it's trying to be your own boss and managing yourself. It would be easier if my ambition was like to walk loads or just something that you can easily measure, but it's not. My ambition is a creative one, and that means every idea, or most ideas and most processes, are a risk. Working hard on a project might get you nowhere, and playing around might get you really far. So how do you know when to work or when to play? I don't, and that's why I've got 2 of those bosses in my head, which normally leads to me thinking this kind of thing.
You are the most fun, hopeless, dedicated, careless, skilled, childish genius fool I've ever worked with. And you only continue to surprise me.
Thanks. I agree.
I've created a lot of awesome things from playing around, and a lot of the time, the whole process has felt effortless from start to finish. And that is just awesome when it works out like that. But I've also created things I'm really proud of by forcing myself to and focusing in on something. A lot of those times can be more draining and not as fun, but I am left with a finished product. And this leads me to my next point. If creating something becomes boring and hard work and something I've lost motivation for, why should I keep doing it? Like, if that is what creating consistently is like, let me get a 9-to-5 job. At least then I'll be getting paid for the same level of drainage. Isn't it my job to not settle for anything less than my ambition? And if it is mostly draining and rubbish, then that is not my ambition. Of course, there are positives to working on something you lost motivation for. It's good practice for discipline. You have something you can share with the world, and you can even learn things you never would have learned because you face problems you were never going to face. But yes, it's probably unwise for me, a creative man who needs to create, to spend a life in that world. I won't be able to live happily and fulfilled in a life like that. But then also, what about this next point I'm about to bring up? So, as I said, sometimes I force myself to work on a project until it's done, and that literally feels like I've just sentenced myself to 5 years in prison. Like, I'm not even joking. I literally get like a heavy feeling in my gut, and I procrastinate, and then I do little bits here and there, and then I feel the need to choose the most obvious option for play, which, like I said, is normally start making a new song. But what about if I dug around for a bit of play? If I dug around a bit in the project, maybe I would have found that working on the production was a great way of playing, or recording the vocals is also an amazing playing opportunity. Those things can be just as fun, but to me, they're not as obvious. And that's really what it's all about. It's about the kind of obvious and like habits and stuff, right? Like when I think of play, I think of making a new song, but like I said, recording vocals a lot of the time can be just as fun. The next question I want to ask is, can you play in an extremely disciplined situation? Basically, I think the answer is yes. It just might not be as obvious at first. So this means it's literally up to you if something is considered work or play. You literally get to decide. And how do you decide? Well, you look for choices that exist where there are no right answers. When you see them, that's where you can play. When you don't see them, that's when you feel like it's all work. You might have to hunt for them a lot, but they are there. So what links discipline and play? Knowing the rules. That's what links the two. You can only purposefully and meaningfully play when you know the rules. And you can only be disciplined if you know what the rules are. It's just different response to rules, basically. In play, you can dance around the rules, and in discipline, you cannot. But there are always some rules you can't dance around if you want to play. And on the other hand, there are always rules you can dance around, even when it feels like there aren't any. All right, great. So how does this help? Well, yeah, it's not a crazy new discovery. It's just a nice way of talking about it and thinking about it, for me, at least. So, conclusion time. When should I be hard on myself and when should I not in regards to this one ambition? I don't know. I've used discipline and the play side, both extremes of the spectrum, to get good results. I suppose that was going to be my conclusion for this video, but it's not anymore. I wrote that old conclusion and then lived my life for a few days, and then at night one time I just realised that wasn't actually what I believed in. This is what I actually believe in. Dancing through life, down at the Ozdust, if only basically, fuck it. We're gonna be dancing through life. I'm doubling down on the play side because it is most logical and sensible and rewarding for me and the world. Like, the discipline side, for me at least, in regards to this ambition, my artness, the creative stuff in my life, that's not like me. Yeah, that's not my natural way of being. That comes from fear and society, I think, mainly. That discipline boss is like a little termite that like crawls into my head, and I can just flush him out. Like, I just remembered, you can try and make that boss laugh. You can throw papers in the air. You can make a fart joke whenever you want. And I'm being so serious when I say knowing that, and knowing that I can be anyone I want and do anything I want, gives me so much life and energy and happiness, you know, and no stress. Whereas feeling like you have to do something or be someone is like not great, basically. Realizing that time and time again is wonderful. You know, there are times like this video, right, where you kind of forget that, but I really believe it to be the truth, that, you know, I should be not hard on myself when it comes to this ambition. It's a rediscovery of safety and strength and comfort and gratitude and happiness, and the fact that you are right where you're meant to be. You're not behind schedule. There is no schedule. You're doing it perfectly, you know. Making music has taught me a lot about life, and a big lesson I've learned that relates to this is
being qualified leads to feeling qualified, but also feeling qualified leads to being qualified.
And how do you feel qualified? Well, you can meet an expectation you've set up in your head, or you can just accept who you are. You can just give yourself a garden to bloom in instead of trying to reach something you've constructed in your head, to reach a value that you can only unlock once you've reached the thing you've the goal you've set in your head, which is just nonsense, really. Like, why am I worrying about trying to fit into something I've constructed out of fear and societal norms, instead of just blooming how I would naturally bloom? How freeing and how joyous. And it's the easiest thing in the world, right? That's the bit that I tend to forget. It's actually the easiest thing in the world. Making a song is actually the easiest thing in the world. You just have to accept yourself, basically. That's what it is. And that's something I really believe and have for a while. But sometimes when you're not dwelling on it and not reminding yourself, other voices can be louder than that. And then you can kind of not be as awake to what is true and what is important. But these many rememberings and rediscoveries of truth and ways of being are awesome. This spectrum of play and discipline can also be seen as love and fear. Doing something for the love of it versus doing something out of fear for what will happen if you don't do it. There is actually nothing wrong with only hitting 2 out of 8 goals if I don't want there to be. Like, trying to answer the question of this video isn't needed if I just accept that there isn't a problem, you know? Like I said, I'm not behind schedule. I'm actually right where I'm meant to be. And again, that whole feeling of realizing that, again, is amazing, because you feel that prison sentence feeling in your gut, and all this weight, all this pressure just lift, and it's amazing. Also, this pressureless feeling and fearless feeling is very important when it comes to creating. It's like if you ever tried to go to sleep, but you're pressuring yourself to fall asleep as quickly as possible, and then that is the thing that keeps you awake, versus falling asleep when you're just relaxed, right? And then it just happens naturally in like 2 seconds sometimes. It's that, you know, when you're pressuring yourself, it's it can lead to something not actually happening. Whereas if you just let yourself be natural and do your thing, it will happen quicker, you know? Now I'd like to share some art that helped me double down again on the decision to go with the play side. So here are some of that art.
Let this moment be the first chapter where you decide to stay. And I could be enough.
Learn not to put all this heavy pressure on myself. I try believe it when I say, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen anyway. I'll be fine. I've got time.
So what are my goals for 2025? I only have one, and that's to try and flush out that discipline boss as much as I can in regards to this ambition. Thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.